At 25, Era Malik had learned one painful truth about life. No one saves you. You save yourself. She stood at the bus stop at 5:40 a.m., the sky still dark, the air cold enough to sting her fingers. Her bag hung from one shoulder, heavy with files, a cracked laptop, and dreams she never spoke about anymore. People around her looked half asleep, faces tired, hearts heavier. Era watched her reflection in the glass of a closed shop. Same simple clothes. Same tied-back hair. Same eyes that had seen too much too early. Once, she used to believe life would be kinder if you were good. If you worked hard. If you respected elders and followed rules. She smiled bitterly at that thought. Life was not kind. Life was fair only to the strong. The bus arrived with a loud screech. She stepped in, squeezed between strangers, holding the bar tightly as the city began to wake up. Outside, billboards advertised success, smiling faces, luxury cars, perfect lives. Inside the bus, Era counted her breaths. Today mattered. Today, she would either move one step forward or fall further behind. She worked as a junior content analyst at a small digital firm. No big name. No big salary. Just long hours, unrealistic expectations, and a boss who believed fear was the best motivation. At 25, most girls she knew were married, posting pictures of gifts and dinners. Some judged her. Some pitied her. She's too ambitious. She'll regret not settling down. She thinks she's better than everyone. No one asked why she worked this hard. They didn't know about the nights she skipped dinner, so her younger brother could eat properly. They didn't know about the hospital bills. They didn't know about the promise she made at her mother's grave. The bus stopped suddenly. Era stumbled but didn't fall. She never did. She reached the office before sunrise, unlocked the door, and turned on the lights. The office smelled of dust and instant coffee. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers for the next 12 hours. She sat at her desk and opened her laptop. The screen flickered before turning on. "Please just work today," she whispered. At 9:17 a.m., her manager, Farhan, walked in. "You're late," he said flatly. Era looked at the clock. She had arrived before him. Like always. "It's 9:17, she said calmly. "Office time is 9:30. Farhan smirked. "Don't teach me rules. Just do your work." Something burned inside her chest, but she swallowed it. She had learned when to speak, and when silence was survival. By noon her head throbbed. She had finished 3 reports, corrected someone else's mistakes, and taken blame for an error she didn't make. During lunch break she didn't eat. She checked her phone instead. 12 missed calls. From the hospital. Her fingers trembled as she called back. "Yes," she said softly. "We need the payment by today," the nurse said. "Otherwise we'll have to stop the treatment." Era closed her eyes. "How much time?" she asked. "Until evening." The call ended. She stared at her screen, numbers blurring. Her salary wasn't enough. Her savings were almost gone. For the first time in years, she felt fear, not for herself, but for the life depending on her. That night she didn't go home. She stayed back. She worked. She learned. She rewrote her own limits. At 2:43 a.m., while the city slept, Era sent an email that would quietly change her life. She didn't know it yet. But this was the night she stopped being just a struggling girl and started becoming a woman the world would one day respect. The email sat quietly in Era's sent folder. No dramatic music. No instant miracle. Just words typed by tired fingers at nearly 3 in the morning. She had applied for a remote international content position. One she had no degree requirement for, only skill. She had rewritten the sample twice, checked every comma, every line, until her eyes burned. When she finally shut the laptop, the office lights felt harsh. She rested her head on the desk for just a moment and woke up to sunlight. Her neck ached. Her phone buzzed nonstop. 6 missed calls from the hospital. 3 from her brother. Her heart dropped. She rushed out without locking the door properly, catching the first bus she could. The city looked different in daylight. Louder, crueler, less forgiving. At the hospital, the smell of antiseptic hit her hard. She walked fast, almost running, until she reached the ward. Her brother, Samir, stood up the moment he saw her. Where were you? He asked, his voice tight with panic. I was working, she said, breathless. What happened? They stopped one medicine for an hour, he said. They said payment. I know, she cut in softly. I'm handling it. She walked into the room. Her father lay still, eyes closed, chest rising slowly. Tubes, machines, beeping sounds. This room had become her second home. She took his hand. It felt thinner than yesterday. I'm here, she whispered. You're not alone. But inside, fear screamed. At 25, Era was the parent, the provider, the protector. By evening, she had borrowed money from a colleague she barely trusted. Enough to restart treatment, but not enough to breathe easy. On her way home, exhaustion finally caught her. At the bus stop, an old woman sat beside her and said, Beta, zindagi bohat lambi lagdi hijab mushkil ho. Era smiled faintly. Aur buat ko tijab kwabo. The woman nodded, like she understood. At home, Era collapsed onto the thin mattress. She didn't cry. She hadn't cried in years. Crying required energy she no longer had. The next morning, her phone buzzed. An unknown email. Her heart pounded as she opened it. We reviewed your application. Please schedule an interview. She read it again. And again. It wasn't a job offer. It wasn't a guarantee. But it was a door. She whispered, thank you, to no one in particular. The interview was scheduled for Sunday, which meant 3 days. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to hope. 3 days to survive. At the office, Farhan dumped extra work on her desk. You'll stay late, he said. Deadline is tonight. I have a family emergency, Era said carefully. He laughed. Everyone has excuses. You want this job or not? Something shifted inside her. She straightened her back. I want respect. Farhan stared at her, surprised. You should learn your place, he said coldly. She met his eyes. Calm. Steady. I know my place, she said. And it's not here forever. That night, she worked again. But this time with purpose. She practiced interview answers quietly, repeating them under her breath while fixing reports. She watched free tutorials during breaks. She wrote notes on torn pages. At home, Samir watched her with worry. You don't sleep, he said. I'll sleep later, she replied. Sunday came faster than she expected. She wore her cleanest outfit. Simple. Professional. Hair tied back. No makeup except a little confidence she forced herself to feel. The interview screen loaded. A man appeared. Mid-40s. Calm voice. Tell me about yourself, he said. She took a breath. My name is Era Malik. I'm 25. I don't come from privilege. But I come from discipline. I've worked through pressure, disrespect, and responsibility. And I learn fast, because failure is expensive for me. The man listened. Really listened. She spoke honestly. About skills. About mistakes. About growth. Not once did she beg. When the interview ended, he smiled. Regardless of the outcome, he said, You're impressive. The call ended. Silence. Era sat still for a long time. That night, she allowed herself one small dream. What if? 2 days later, her boss called her into the office. We're letting you go, Farhan said casually. Budget issues. No warning. No apology. Her ears rang. She walked out carrying her bag, past people who avoided her eyes. Outside, the sky was gray. She checked her phone. Another email. Her hands shook. We'd like to offer you a 3-month probation contract. Era sat down on the pavement. People passed by. Cars honked. Life moved. And for the first time in years, she cried. Not from pain. From relief. From pride. From knowing that even when life tried to crush her, she stood back up. At 25, Era Malik was unemployed. And more powerful than she had ever been. The offer letter didn't magically solve everything. It didn't pay the hospital bills instantly. It didn't erase debt. It didn't bring peace overnight. But it gave Era something far more dangerous than comfort. Hope. The remote job required her to work night shifts. International timings. Long hours. Strict performance tracking. 3 months probation. No excuses. She accepted without hesitation. Her first day started at 9 p.m. She borrowed a neighbor's internet connection. Her laptop overheated after 2 hours. The fan rattled like it might stop at any moment. Era didn't complain. She adjusted. She learned shortcuts. She took notes. She asked smart questions instead of many. At 2:17 a.m., her supervisor messaged her. Your work is clean. Fast lerna. She read the line twice. A simple sentence. But it healed something broken inside her. Days became routine. Mornings at the hospital. Evenings with Samir. Nights with deadlines. Sleep turned into a luxury. One night, as she typed, her hands suddenly froze. A sharp pain shot through her wrist. She winced, shook it off and kept going. Pain was familiar. Stopping was not. A week later, her father's condition worsened. Doctors spoke in careful tones, avoiding promises. Era stood there, nodding, absorbing every word like a soldier receiving orders. How much time? She asked. The doctor hesitated. We're doing our best. That was never an answer. That night, she worked harder than ever. At dawn, she stepped out onto the rooftop. The city below was quiet, lights flickering off one by one. She hugged herself. I can't fail, she whispered. Not now. Her phone buzzed. A message from her old office. Your final settlement will be delayed. She laughed softly. Of course. Life never missed a chance. 2 days later, something unexpected happened. Her supervisor scheduled a one-on-one call. Era's heart raced. Had she messed up? The screen loaded. You're outperforming people with years of experience, he said. How are you managing this pace? She thought for a moment. Because for me, she said, this isn't just work. It's survival. There was silence. Then he nodded. Keep going. The words felt like fuel. At home, Samir watched her closely. You're disappearing, he said one night. You're here, but not really. She sat beside him. This is temporary, she promised. I just need to build something stable. He looked at her, eyes soft. You already are. She didn't reply. Because she didn't feel strong. She felt tired. Very tired. One night, at 4:30 a.m., the power went out. The screen went black. Era's heart dropped. No backup. No generator. She stared at the dead laptop, panic rising. This was it. Missed deadlines. Bad impression. Failure. She grabbed her phone and typed a message to her supervisor, explaining the situation honestly. No excuses. No drama. Then she waited. Minutes passed. Finally, a reply came. Thanks for informing. Upload when power returns. She exhaled slowly. Not everyone wanted to crush her. The power came back an hour later. She finished the task anyway. At sunrise, her phone rang. From the hospital. She froze. Yes, she answered. We need you to come, the nurse said gently. Era didn't ask why. She already knew. At the hospital, the machines were louder. The room felt heavier. Her father opened his eyes briefly. She leaned closer. I'm working now, she said softly. I'm Ernan. Just hold on a little longer. His fingers twitched in her hand. That was enough. Outside the room, Era finally broke. She slid down the wall and cried silently. No one comforted her. No one needed to. She wiped her face, stood up, and went back inside. Because strong women don't wait for rescue. They become it. At 25, Era Malik was learning a brutal lesson. Strength doesn't come from winning. It comes from standing up again. When life pushes you to your knees. The hospital room was quiet in a way that felt wrong. No steady rhythm of machines. No soft instructions from nurses. Just silence. Era stood at the door, her body refusing to move forward. She already knew what that silence meant, but knowing and accepting were two very different things. The doctor spoke gently, his voice careful. I'm sorry. The words fell like stones. She didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She nodded, as if he had just told her the weather. Inside the room, her father lay still, peaceful for the first time in months. The pain that had eaten him alive was gone. Era walked to the bed and held his hand. It's okay, she whispered. You can rest now. For years, she had carried the weight of the family. Now the weight felt different. Heavier.
Permanent.
The funeral was small. Few people came. Life moved on for everyone else. Era stood quietly, dressed in black, listening to words that felt distant. Samir stood beside her, shaking. When it was over, people offered sympathy. Be strong. You're the man of the house now. Allah will help. No one offered help that paid bills. That night, the house felt emptier than ever. Samir sat on the floor, staring at nothing. What do we do now? He asked. Era looked around. The peeling walls, unpaid bills, the silence. We survive, she said. And then for the first time her voice cracked. She turned away quickly. She couldn't afford to fall apart. The next morning, she logged into work. Her eyes were swollen. Her heart felt hollow. But deadlines didn't pause for grief. At noon, her supervisor messaged her. I heard about your loss. She froze. How? She typed. You mentioned your father earlier. Take today off. She stared at the screen. Time off felt unreal. I can work, she replied. A pause. Take the day, he said again. She closed the laptop and finally let herself cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears that soaked into the pillow. By evening, something strange happened. Anger. Not at her father. Not at fate. At the world. At how unfair it had been. At how hard she had worked. At how little mercy life showed. She stood up and wiped her face. No, she said out loud. This ends with me. From that day, Era changed. She woke earlier. Worked smarter. Tracked every expense. Learned new skills after shifts. She stopped apologizing for existing. A week later, her supervisor scheduled another call. We want to extend your probation responsibilities, he said. More work. Higher expectations. And pay, she asked calmly. He smiled. If you meet the targets. She agreed. Not because she was desperate. Because she was ready. At night, Samir watched her type. You don't smile anymore, he said softly. She paused. I will, she said. Later. Some nights, memories hit her like waves. Her father's voice. His advice. His pride in her eyes. She carried it quietly. One evening she received an email. Performance review scheduled. Her hands trembled. What if all this effort wasn't enough? The review call was short. You're among our top performers, her supervisor said. We're converting you to full-time. Era closed her eyes. Full-time meant stability, security, a future. She thanked him professionally, then sat in silence after the call ended. She didn't celebrate. She didn't jump. She simply breathed. Because sometimes success doesn't feel loud. Sometimes it feels like survival finally loosening its grip. That night, she stood on the rooftop again. Same city. Same lights. Different woman. At 25, Era Malik had buried her father. And buried the version of herself that waited for life to be fair. From now on, she would take what she deserved. Stability was a strange feeling. For years, Era had lived in emergency mode. Reacting, adjusting, enduring. Now for the first time, she knew exactly how much money would come in at the end of the month. It didn't make her rich, but it made her breathe. She created a routine. Strict. Unforgiving. Work at night. Sleep in short blocks. Learning in between. She enrolled in free courses, watched tutorials at double speed, practiced skills she wasn't even being paid for yet. Every new skill felt like armor. Samir returned to college. Era paid the fees quietly, without announcing it like a victory. One evening, while grocery shopping, she ran into someone she hadn't seen in years. Her aunt. The same woman who once said, Padlik kar kia karegi? She looked Era up and down. You're still working? She asked, surprised. Yes, Era replied calmly. At your age, you should think about settling. Era smiled politely. I am settled. Her aunt frowned, confused. Later that night, Era thought about the girl she used to be. The one who doubted herself every time someone questioned her choices. That girl was gone. At work, pressure increased.
International client.
Tighter deadlines. Higher expectations. But so did her confidence. Her name began appearing in internal chats. People asked for her input, trusted her judgment. One night, her supervisor messaged her privately. We're considering you for a lead role in an upcoming project. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Thank you, she typed. I'm interested. She didn't add a single insecure sentence. The project was brutal. Time zones clashed. Clients were demanding. Team members burned out. Era didn't. She managed tasks, resolved conflicts, delivered results. Not perfectly, but consistently. Halfway through the project, Samir fell sick. High fever. Weakness. Hospital visits. Era sat beside his bed, laptop open, answering messages quietly. You don't have to do everything, Samir said. She looked at him. Yes, she said gently. Ido. Because if she didn't, no one else would. During the project's final week, something unexpected happened. A junior teammate made a mistake. A big one. The client was furious. The team panicked. Era took responsibility. I'll fix it, she said. She stayed awake for 36 hours straight. Correcting. Rebuilding. Rewriting. When the project was finally delivered, there was silence. Then an email arrived. Excellent recovery. Impressive leadership. Her hands shook. Not from exhaustion, but from realization. She wasn't pretending anymore. She was capable. Days later, she received her first proper bonus. Not huge, but earned. She transferred part of it to savings, part to bills, and bought one small thing for herself, a pair of comfortable shoes. She walked home in them slowly, smiling at the ground. Success didn't feel like applause. It felt like dignity. That night, she dreamed of her father. He stood far away smiling. She woke up with tears in her eyes, but strength in her chest. At 25, Era Malik wasn't chasing validation anymore. She was building a life so solid that no one could shake it again. Success makes people uncomfortable. Era didn't notice it at first. She was too busy working, learning, building. But slowly, the tone around her changed. Messages became shorter. Responses colder. A teammate questioned her decisions in meetings. Another stopped sharing information on time. She didn't react. She focused on results. One evening, she received a direct message from her supervisor. Can you handle a solo client account? Solo meant risk. If things went wrong, there would be no team to hide behind. Yes, she replied. The client was demanding, impatient, unforgiving. They wanted changes overnight. Expected instant replies. Era adapted. She set boundaries, communicated clearly, delivered consistently, but pressure leaked into her life. She started waking up with headaches. Her appetite disappeared. One night, Samir confronted her. You're burning out, he said. This isn't strength. She looked at him quietly. This is the cost, she replied. A few days later, the unexpected happened. Her old boss, Farhan, messaged her on LinkedIn. I heard you're doing well, he wrote. We have a senior position open. Better title. Office role. Era stared at the message. A better title. A familiar environment. A chance to prove something. But also the same disrespect. The same limits. She didn't reply immediately. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Fear whispered. What if this remote job disappears? Pride whispered. Show them what you became. But another voice was louder. Self-respect. She replied the next morning. Thank you for considering me. I've moved on. No explicación. No apology. At work, tension grew. The solo client escalated an issue that wasn't her fault. Era was called into a review call. The room felt heavy, even through a screen. We expect better, the client said sharply. Era listened, then spoke calmly. I delivered what was agreed. I'm open to adjustments, but not blame for miscommunication. Silence. Her supervisor stepped in. She's right, he said. Era's chest tightened. Support felt unfamiliar. After the call, her supervisor messaged her. Not everyone handles pressure with clarity. You did. That night, Era sat alone, staring at her hands. They were shaking. Not from fear. From holding too much for too long. She took a deep breath and did something she had never done before. She took a day off. No laptop. No messages. She walked. She thought. She rested. For the first time, she asked herself a dangerous question. What do I want? Not what she needed. Not what others expected. What she wanted. The answer scared her. Growth. Real growth. A week later, an internal opportunity was announced. A leadership training program. Limited seats. High expectations. Era hesitated. Applying meant stepping into visibility, judgment, competition. She hovered over the apply button, then clicked it. That night, she told Samir. I'm scared, she admitted. He smiled. That's new. She smiled back. At 25, Era Malik had learned something crucial. Fear doesn't mean stop. Fear means you're about to grow. The acceptance email arrived at 6:12 a.m. Era stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Congratulations. You've been selected. She read it 3 times to make sure it was real. Leadership training. Out of hundreds. Her first instinct wasn't excitement. It was doubt. They'll realize I don't belong here. That voice was old. Familiar. She closed the laptop and went to the kitchen. Made tea she barely drank. Her hands trembled slightly. Samir noticed. You got in, he said. She nodded. You're not happy, he observed. I'm terrified, she admitted. The training began the following week. Daily sessions. Case studies. Presentations. People spoke confidently, using polished language, throwing around big ideas. Era listened. She learned. She stayed quiet at first, not because she had nothing to say, but because she chose her moments carefully. One session required participants to present a failure. When her turn came, Era paused, then spoke. I failed by believing that working harder would make people kinder. It didn't. It only made me invisible. The room went still. She continued, voice steady. I learned that effort without boundaries becomes exploitation. Leadership begins when you stop accepting that. No dramatic gestures. Just truth. After the session, a senior mentor approached her. You speak with weight, he said. Where did you learn that? She thought of hospital rooms. Late nights. Loss. Life, she replied. Pressure intensified. Work. Training. Home responsibilities. Sleep shrank further. One night, Era forgot her father's death anniversary. She remembered at 2 a.m. Guilt crushed her. She sat on the floor and cried, for him, for herself, for the years she never allowed herself to grieve. The next day, she showed up anyway. Not perfect, but present. Midway through the program, something unexpected happened. She was asked to lead a group discussion. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. She guided the conversation, listened, summarized. People followed. Afterward, a teammate messaged her. You made it easy to speak. That's rare. Era stared at the message. Leadership didn't feel like control. It felt like space. But doubt returned at night. What if I fail publicly? She remembered something her father once said. Dar ke sachal na seklo. Dar ka bi katam nahi hota. She started speaking up more. Not loudly. Clearly. The final evaluation approached. One presentation. One chance. The night before, Samir brought her tea. You already won, he said. She smiled faintly. No, she said. I'm just finally standing where I should have stood years ago. The presentation day arrived. She didn't rush. She didn't impress. She explained. She told a story about resilience, boundaries, and quiet leadership. When she finished, the room was silent. Then applause. Not loud, but sincere. That night, she walked home slowly. The city lights reflected in her eyes. At 25, Era Malik realized something powerful. She wasn't becoming someone new. She was finally allowing herself to be seen. The offer came quietly. No announcement. No celebration. Just an email marked confidential. Era opened it slowly. We'd like you to take over a failing client portfolio. Her heart skipped. Failing meant pressure, blame, visibility. Most people avoided such opportunities. Era didn't. She asked one question. What authority will I have? The reply came quickly. Full control. She accepted. The portfolio was chaos. Missed deadlines.
Angry client.
Demotivated team members. In the first meeting, people spoke over each other. Excuses filled the room. Era listened. Then said calmly, "We start by being honest." Silence followed. She divided tasks. Set clear rules. Defined boundaries. Some resisted. "You're new," one teammate said. "This is too much change." She met his eyes. "Then improve," she said. "Or step aside." It was the first time she spoke without fear. The pressure was immediate. Clients demanded calls at odd hours. Executives watched closely. One wrong move, and her name would be attached to failure. Late one night, alone with her laptop, doubt returned. "Who do you think you are?" She closed her eyes and breathed. "I'm someone who doesn't quit," she whispered. Midway through the turnaround, disaster struck. A major client threatened to leave. The team panicked. Era scheduled a call. She didn't overpromise. She didn't defend. She took responsibility. "You're right to be frustrated," she said. "Here's what will change." Her honesty disarmed them. They stayed. Weeks passed. Numbers improved. Feedback shifted. Trust rebuilt slowly. But the cost was heavy. Era collapsed one morning from exhaustion. Nothing dramatic. Just her body saying enough. At the clinic, the doctor looked at her seriously. "You're functioning on stress," he said. "Not strength." She nodded. That night, she did something radical. She delegated. She trusted others. She stopped trying to be everything. The results improved faster. At the final review, the executive team joined the call. The screen filled with unfamiliar faces. "We've seen the numbers," one said. "But we're more interested in how you led." Era spoke honestly. "I stopped trying to prove myself," she said, "and started building systems." Silence. Then a smile. "We'd like to make this permanent," he said, "with a leadership role." Her chest tightened. This wasn't survival anymore. This was success. She ended the call and sat quietly. Samir noticed her expression. "What happened?" he asked. She looked at him. "I said yes," she replied. That night, she stood on the rooftop again. Same city. Same wind. Different future. At 25, Era Malik took her boldest step yet. Not to escape life, but to lead it. The promotion didn't change Era overnight. She still woke up tired. Still worked long hours. Still carried quiet grief inside her. But something subtle had shifted. People listened now. Meetings paused when she spoke. Decisions carried weight when her name was attached. Respect felt strange. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because she had lived so long without it. Her first official week as a leader was heavy. Emails never stopped. Expectations doubled. One afternoon, she received a message from an unfamiliar name. A former colleague. "I always knew you'd go far," it read. She stared at the screen. She remembered the silence. The avoidance. The doubt. She didn't reply. Validation arrived too late. That evening, she visited her father's grave alone. The sky was soft gray. "I did it," she said quietly. "Not the way you imagined, but I did." She sat there longer than planned. For the first time, she talked. Not prayed, not begged. She spoke about fear. About exhaustion. About pride. Walking back, she realized something painful. She had spent years chasing stability for others. Now she needed to learn how to live for herself. At work, she made a difficult decision. She let go of a team member who refused accountability. It wasn't emotional. It was necessary. Leadership, she learned, wasn't kindness without limits. It was fairness with courage. That night, Samir asked her a question she wasn't ready for. "What about you?" he said. "Your life." She looked at him, surprised. "I am my life," she replied. He smiled sadly. "That's not what I meant." The words stayed with her. A few days later, she declined an extra project. For the first time ever. No explanation beyond, "I'm at capacity." The world didn't end. At a company event, she stood among people who once intimidated her. Now they felt human. A senior executive approached her. "You lead quietly," he said. "That's rare." She nodded. Quiet didn't mean weak. It meant deliberate. That night, she went home early, cooked dinner, sat in silence. She opened an old notebook. Pages filled with budgets, hospital notes, deadlines. On the last page, she wrote something new. I choose balance. At 25, Era Malik understood something profound. Winning isn't about reaching the top. It's about not losing yourself on the way up. Era woke up before the alarm. Sunlight crept into the room quietly, like it didn't want to disturb her. For the first time in years, her chest didn't feel heavy. There was no emergency waiting. No unpaid bill screaming in her head. No fear pulling her out of bed. Just calm. She made tea and stood by the window. The city below moved the same way it always had, busy, careless, loud. But she was different now. At work, the day passed without chaos. Decisions were made. Problems solved. People trusted her judgment. In the afternoon, she received a message from a young woman on her team. I want to be like you, it read. Strong. Independent. Era paused before replying. Be yourself, she typed. And protect your self-respect. She meant it. That evening, she went to the rooftop one last time. The place where she had stood through fear, loss, and uncertainty. The place where she had whispered promises she wasn't sure she could keep. She closed her eyes and breathed. She remembered the girl at 25 who stood at a bus stop before sunrise, carrying a broken laptop and invisible burdens. That girl had no safety net. No sortkuts. Only discipline. Only dignity. Life hadn't been fair to her. But it had been honest. Later that night, Samir joined her. You don't look tired anymore, he said. She smiled softly. I learned when to stop running, she replied. He looked at her with pride. You saved us, he said. She shook her head. No, she said. We saved ourselves. Before going to bed, Era opened her laptop and wrote one final note to herself. Strength isn't loud. Success isn't sudden. And self-respect is non-negotiable. She shut the laptop. At 25, Era Malik didn't become a hero. She became something far more powerful. A woman who survived without losing her soul. A woman who earned every step forward. A woman who proved that even when the world gives you nothing, you can still build everything. And somewhere, quietly, her journey began inspiring others. Just like this story inspired you.